Number 5. Back to the Future Part 2. Again, I include a sequel and not its classic counterpart. This is arguably the greatest movie trilogy ever because it's the hardest one to point out which film is the best. I like all three for different reasons. The first one has a great story, and the third has an unlikely romance between Doc Brown and schoolteacher Clara Clayton. But after dissecting the movie scene by scene, I'd have to say Part 2 is my personal favorite. First off, I love whenever a movie tries to depict the future, especially now when most of these movies' predictions have come and gone. It was obvious that with this movie, the future was depicted entirely with gags. Come on, there's a Jaws 19 directed by Max Spielberg.
The shark still looks fake.
Of course, the nostalgic diner, the Cafe 80s, is a scene that really hit the nail on the head because that's pretty much how you remember that classic decade. It takes the concept of time travel and turns it on its head. In the first film, it used time travel to answer an interesting question. What would it be like if we could go back in time and meet our parents as teenagers? It was a unique concept for the time, but Part 2 shows us just what can happen when that power is abused. People criticize its overly complex story, but you don't have to give it that much thought. It's simply a fun tale, and in my opinion, it follows the conventions of the first film. It is darker, but that can also be attributed to the fact that they couldn't get Crispin Glover to reprise the role of George McFly. In the original script, Biff took the sports almanac back to the 70s, where George would have been a professor. However, when Glover asked for too many perks, they had to pass on him and instead wrote a story where his character was murdered. But what makes Part 2 stand out as a truly unique film and not just another sequel is that it goes back to the events of the first movie and approaches them from a different angle. Some might say that's the less original approach, but think about it. There aren't many opportunities where we get to see that happen. It's got so many fresh ideas and still captures the excitement of the first movie, and that's what makes a great sequel. Number 4. Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Of all the movie franchises represented on this list, I had the hardest time deciding which Star Wars film should make the cut. I've seen people cheat, including the entire trilogy as one film, but I wanted to pick the one that best represents the series. Believe it or not, it was a tie between Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and Revenge of the Sith. Yes, a prequel. It's surprising how many varied opinions there are regarding the best one. Avid moviegoers generally favor the original film, or Episode 4, while Star Wars purists tend to lean toward Empire. But it seems that before the prequels came out, people seemed to hold Jedi in a much higher regard. Was it because of the changes made to the dance number, or did people hate Jar Jar so much that they decided to dismiss the Ewoks as well? Even Randall from Clerks has said in both films that Jedi is his personal kryptonite.
There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
Revenge of the Sith tells the story I always wanted to be told. From the first time I saw Obi-Wan recount his epic battle with Vader, I wanted to see that scene unfold on the big screen. Empire is a masterpiece in special effects, and it has what's debatably the most famous revelation in movie history. But when it comes to Jedi, it just feels that they took all of that experimental technology and perfected it. Everything from Jabba's palace to the sail barge over the Sarlacc pit, the speeder bike chase and the Battle of Endor, Jedi simply takes everything that made the series awesome and combined it into one movie. It was like Lucas knew he was saving the best for last. What sets Jedi apart from Sith, though, are the characters. Luke, Leia, and Han are a little easier to relate to than Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Palpatine. It ties all the loose ends as Leia finally discovers her relationship to Luke, Vader's parentage to Luke is confirmed, and Vader gets redeemed by his son. It's all very epic, and in terms of the effects, it's uncanny. There are so many effect shots that I'm still trying to figure out how they accomplished, and let's not forget my favorite scene, the Jabba the Hutt sequence. Before Lucas decided to add Jabba to A New Hope, we didn't know what he was going to look like. They built him up for 2 films, and then we finally saw him in all his disgusting glory. For a big puppet, they did a lot with him, and this is by far the most convincing version of Jabba to date. You don't need CGI to make a convincing character. If you've never seen a Star Wars film, you're still going to want to start with the original. But this is one of those rare cases where each installment gets exponentially better, and Jedi is the end-all battle between good and evil.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
So be it, Jedi.
Number 3. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King.
There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
This one I don't feel hesitant about. I'm pretty sure most people will agree this is the best of the Peter Jackson trilogy. It's so good that it almost makes you forget there were 2 prior films. I've never seen a movie that balances so much story so majestically. The sights, the sounds, the drama, the music, the characters, what's not to like? As Frodo and Sam continue their arduous journey to Mount Doom, Aragorn finally accepts his destiny as the King of Gondor as he leads an army of the dead against Sauron's dark forces. Gollum continues to deceive our heroes as he leads them toward their fates, and I don't care what everyone rants and raves about, the ending is completely satisfactory in my book. Jackson wasn't just ending one 3-hour movie, but a 10-hour epic. He knew how beloved these characters were, and he treated it as such, giving everyone their own personal send-off. How could you end this movie and not tell us what became of Aragorn, Arwen, or the Hobbits? Sure, he could have ended it with Sam simply looking back at Frodo in fond memory, but would that really have been enough to please fans? It's a definite crowd pleaser, and Jackson knew what he was doing. As if the movie wasn't long enough, check out the extended edition, where they added 55 minutes of additional footage. At that point, it stops being a movie and winds up feeling like an experience. While that version's a little long for my taste, most fans actually didn't mind the extended running time. It just shows what a testament this film is. Fans will actually sit down and watch this 4-hour epic in one sitting, without even blinking. It ups the stakes, reveals crucial plot points, and just has too many great action scenes to count. It's an action-adventure that's unlike any other. Number 2. The Shawshank Redemption. Is this one really a surprise? Considering my list features mainly action and sci-fi films, it might be to some. But seriously, who hasn't been affected by this film? On the DVD, there are several accounts of people whose lives were changed by watching it. It's probably one of the most uplifting films to date, and it's a prison movie. For those who haven't seen it, it's about a young banker named Andy Dufresne who gets convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. He gets a life sentence, and in prison, he slowly befriends a con man named Red, played by Morgan Freeman.
Why do they call you that?
Maybe it's because I'm Irish.
And many would agree this is Freeman's best performance. Freeman narrates the film, and this is one of the few films that uses narration to its advantage.
There must be a con like me in every prison in America. I'm the guy who can get it for you. So when Andy Dufresne came to me in 1949 and asked me to smuggle Rita Hayworth into the prison for him, I told him, no problem.
He really gives us a feel for what prison life is like. It's depressing, it's brutal, there's little to no comfort, and as time passes, you start to depend on it. That's one of the themes of this movie, how prison life can institutionalize you to the point of not wanting to leave, as we see demonstrated when the prison librarian Brooks Hatlin gets released on his parole.
They send you here for life? That's exactly what they take.
While it paints a ghastly image of prison life, at its core it's about a deep friendship that develops between these two characters. Even though Andy's the protagonist, it's Red who's telling the story. Andy's very enigmatic, and he doesn't say a lot, but when he does, it's not hard to see him as anything else but really intelligent.
Yeah, I've been in and out since I was 13. You name the place, chances are I've been there.
Perhaps it's time you tried a new profession. What I mean is, you don't seem to be a very good thief. Maybe you should try something else.
As you find out at the tail end of the film, he's also persistent and patient, which pays off. Bob Gunton plays the corrupt warden who enlists Andy to launder money for him.
Put your trust in the Lord. Your ass belongs to me. Welcome to Shawshank.
Of course, the true villain in the film is the grisly Byron Hadley, played by Clancy Brown, who could kill you simply by looking at you.
Oh, that's funny. You're gonna look funnier sucking my dick with no teeth.
I don't know what it is, but he seems to love playing these temperamental bad guys. It actually moves at a leisurely pace, letting you enjoy the story as a whole, or just allowing you to embrace certain scenes. It goes without saying, the film has the greatest ending of all time. This is one of those rare situations where they took a good short story, expanded on it, and made the film infinitely better. You can actually find the DVD for really cheap, and trust me, it'll be the best $5 you ever spend. Number 1. Forrest Gump. For some of you, this might seem like an anticlimactic entry considering it's my number 1 pick. I don't know if it's the greatest movie ever made, but it has all the makings. Think about it. Robert Zemeckis has 3 movies that are in my top 10. Between 1985 and 1995, he had a winning streak of great films. Think about how quotable this movie is.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. My name's Forrest Gump. People call me Forrest Gump.
Historically, it may not be up there with Casablanca, but tell me how many of you have at one point or another imitated Forrest Gump. It's a movie about a simple-minded man who travels through life like a feather in the wind. He goes from one place to the next without so much as a thought as to why he's there, and he always seems to have fateful run-ins with his childhood friend, Jenny. Jenny! The performances are top-notch. Tom Hanks, who is best known for his comedy, gave what could be his most memorable performance.
I'm not a smart man. but I know what love is.
But the entire cast shines. Sally Field is his protective mama.
Don't ever let anybody tell you they're better than you, Forrest. If God intended everybody to be the same, he'd have given us all braces on our legs.
Gary Sinise is Lieutenant Dan.
They gave you, an imbecile, a moron who goes on television, the Congressional Medal of Honor.
And Robin Wright is Jenny.
Why are you so good to me?
You're my girl.
I'll always be your girl.
There isn't one forgettable performance or scene to be had. The cinematography is beautiful, though shots of Forrest simply running past lakes and mountains always strike me as stunning. It's an uplifting, sincerely moving film, and I'm surprised it isn't on more lists. I know the author of the book, Winston Groom, didn't particularly like the direction Hollywood took the film. He even had a scene in his novelized sequel, Gump and Company, where the character of Forrest meets Tom Hanks on the set of the movie. But if it didn't start off as a book, would audiences look at it differently? It's certainly a very memorable film, with every scene, every moment forming a lasting impression. Forrest Gump could quite possibly be a contender for greatest movie of all time.
That's all I have to say about that.